All right, this is a more difficult video than I thought it would be. This is going to be based on the concept of the apocalypse, and I'm trying to figure out how to put this in a sequential order that would make sense to a viewer that, yeah. So, let's go back to John Dee. John Dee was a gentleman who was the original 007. He was the court astrologer and head spy for Queen Elizabeth. He was around in 1690, and if you do the research on him, he's the one that created what is known as the Enochian alphabet and the system of Enochian magic that exists today. Um, for those that don't understand or think that this is just hocus pocus, I would ask you to please do your research. Prove it wrong. It is based on hyperdimensional physics, quantum mechanics. And as one gentleman put it to me one time, he said, Warren, your problem isn't that which you believe in is not going to hurt you. It's that there are things that you can't even fathom that exist that you need to be concerned with. Now, this isn't to evoke fear, because there's nothing to fear once we attain a certain level of spiritual grounding, if you will. And I write about this all the time, speak about all this all the time, so as long as you're on that, you're good. However, ignoring part of reality, sticking your head in the sand, eventually gets your hind end bit by the lion. It exists without question. Now, this system of magic was later learned by a gentleman named Aleister Crowley, who is known as the most wicked man in the world. He discipled two gentlemen, one being L. Ron Hubbard, the inventor of Scientology, and Jack Parsons, who just happens to be the founder of Jet Propulsion's laboratory. These two went on, and, well, the system of magic used, delving in everything from remote viewing to calling and evoking different angels, basically unlocking the doors to other dimensions from within here to allow for other intelligences to enter. All this is later used even in experiments at Stanford Research Institute in the 70s. And you can look into this. Look up Ingo Swann. Now, Dee was told in his diaries, and these diaries are still around, that the apocalypse would be, that the system of magic would be used eventually to bring about the apocalypse on the planet. Now, the apocalypse. A lot of people would say, they either look at it as doom and gloom or as non-existent. It's just a fairy tale. Well, while I adamantly disagree with a lot of things in the Bible, there is absolute truth in it. What is happening on the planet has been foretold not only in the Bible, but in many other different cultures. It is a common denominator, if you will, across the board. And we are finally in a world where we are globally connected. We are in a world right now that is pushing for a global governance. No question. It's occurring. Look at the UN, look at the WHO, look at ID 2020, look at Event 201. Look at these things, research them. It's occurring now. And actually, here, it has been in effect underground. It's just now being brought to the forefront. Okay. Now, The unlocking of the doors, in different magic circles, it's understood that the human body is the master technology. Yogis understand this, monks understand this, high-level magicians understand this. It is our will, our intent, and our emotional state that allows for what we would call the antenna of our DNA to tune into certain frequencies within creation. In other words, we become the physical agents of the apocalypse on this planet. Which side we serve is determined by the energy which we align with, what we allow to flow through us to then unfold in physical action on the planet. Think about that for a moment. In other words, whether we are going to cling to concepts and ideas of wrath, vengeance, punishment, pettiness, anger, or forgiveness, mercy, love, compassion, is going to determine what flows through us, what actions we take, what type of world we will co-create. The harvest. The harvest being simply those who have decided to go towards, we'll say, the path of Christ consciousness versus those who don't. Now, a lot of people I see right now are really, it's getting more divided. And I've been there. I have been to where I'm like, dude, I'm so done with everything. I was in a very bad place for many years until it finally clicked with me. It clicked. And I went through a lot of healing. I went through a lot of trial and error, my own crucible, my own cross, as we all will bear our own cross while in this world, no question. And see, as one person stated and says, the lifting of the veil is the apocalypse. When we begin to see the totality and the reality of the world in which we live. And when this happens, we have a choice. We can go towards love and trust in the eternal spirit of that love in reality and our connection to it, or fear, terror, anger, violence, because that's where it eventually leads. And as long as people are clinging to thinking that this is the totality of our eternal reality, that nothing exists beyond it, well then they're in terror. And they're like a caged animal backed in a corner, are going to react negatively. And that's what's happening on a very large scale on both sides. Only when we truly begin, and I've talked about this, written about this, to walk the path, and we perfect our love and begin to connect with that greater love and have trust in it. And every single time we say, and it's a practice, and by no means you get it perfect, it's a practice. But when we do that, only then do we begin to align that DNA, that antenna, with the energies coming in that are going to guide us towards constructive means, not self-destructive means. And lots of times things happen so synchronistically that it's not even that we have to seek out the answers to the problems of the world. The problems of the world, the answers to it will find us. But we have to be within the right spirit, the right resonance, if you will, or frequency, as New Age would say. We have to be in that heart space in order to be clear enough and to be drawn to that which will give us the answers that we need. And I know I see a lot of people, it's like they're, and I was there, man. It's like you start seeing this stuff and you're like, oh my God, you know, wake up, because you just want to get everybody, and you get angry if it's not someone waking up when you want to. And I get it, but I can tell you that that's based in fear. It's in the fear for your own survival and your families, because you have not yet learned to trust in the eternal protection, in the eternal destination. That's simple. It also means that you're not trusting God. Because if we trust God, we understand that everything is in its ordained time. No one is going to awaken before they are ordained, period, no matter what we do. So getting angry and frustrated at it or in fear of it makes absolutely no sense. Everybody's here to awaken and to learn and to grow in their time as they need it. And that means respecting their free will. So getting angry about it, getting upset about it, it serves no purpose. We can fight the good fight without being or without being upset about it. I share things all the time on my Facebook. People come back and I get a lot of different reactions, and I always go back to, how are you preparing spiritually? Because if you're preparing spiritually for it, then you will be able to handle anything with grace. And when the solutions unveil themselves to you, then you'll be there, ready, heart-centered. That's simple. And the thing is, we have two sides right now that are actually, here's the ironic thing. The New Age, the vast majority, all about Christ consciousness. It's what they call ascension. All the apocalypse stuff, many understand it's needed to happen to do away with that which does not work, to give birth to that which will. They understand that everything within us that is not in line with love must be purged, and that usually requires it to be destroyed. And since we usually don't like to change without being forced to, we are all being given what we need in order to change. We are seeing right now, with this coronavirus, we're seeing, guess what? We can't even go a few weeks without working away, without the entire world economy collapsing, everybody being in jeopardy. The economic system doesn't work. Healthcare system failing, doesn't work. All of a sudden we realize, hey, we like being around each other. We like being around people. It's nice to give the occasional hug. We're learning to appreciate things that we took for granted for a very long time. And we can look at how maybe there's certain agendas being put in place to limit our individual freedoms, but we need not get upset or angry about it. We just simply need to calmly educate one another and simply say, no, I'm not going to go along with this, that, or this. When you begin to completely do away with personal sovereignty, individual rights, i.e. forced vaccinations, things like this, Doesn't need to be in something of anger, terror, fear, hate. It's just, no, that's not going to work for me. Because we're going to reach more people in a state of calm and love and compassion than we are. I can tell you this because I have learned very, very hard lessons. And being in that emotion, let's just say it allows you to be negatively influenced by a whole lot of spiritual energies that are not constructive, but self-destructive, both individually and to the collective. So all of that, not so much. Doesn't work. It's very, very important. So important. So, so important that we stay heart-centered. That's your superpower, by the way. Did you know that? This is the thing about the New Age. This is where they all get it wrong. Everybody's wanting to sit around and do some magical thing, and they're worried about being from this place or that place, off, this star seed or that star seed, or pineal glands, and love is your superpower. Christ, Buddha, Krishna consciousness, all this, love consciousness, synonymous, love consciousness. The way you connect with love consciousness is how? Through love. So the more you can expand your love beyond the limitations of your former self, the greater your connection with it is. And things, love is your superpower. There's no reason, all the I see this all the time on the some of the boards. They talk about channeling. Here you can. Why would you? Do you realize that you are source being? You have your own ability to glean your own intuition, to have limitless information. You don't need a go-between within your head or channel in some being. That's actually creating dependence. It's limiting your potential by relying on that. And oh, by the way, most of those things that you would do that with, they unfortunately are parasitic. And here's the thing. It ain't even about being angry at them because they don't know any better. And for those that would take offense to what I'm saying who channel, please understand, I am not your enemy. I'm actually for you. And I'm even for the beings that you would channel. Because my only desire for them is to come back to the light and love and to ignite that Christ within, that source energy within, their inner Buddha. Because if they ignite that and follow the path, then they no longer are dependent upon external energies in order to fill that void. They're no longer required to have that. And so in having that personal wellspring within, they then become a part of the solution. They add to the light in creation. So it's about bringing everyone back. Not against you, by no means. I am simply telling you that you have limitless potential as a source being. You need no intermediary, or you need no being channeled within you to get information to save the world. You are more than enough. It's that simple. So, you see I'm coming up on my 20-minute mark, so I have to cut this short. The apocalypse. Rebirth.